What's up, everybody? A very happy Monday night to you. The first night of the winter meetings going on right now. So we are live right here on the Refuse to Lose podcast. Brady Farkas with you from Roundtable Sports, your publisher of Roundtable Sports and the host of this podcast. Some of you are watching on YouTube. Some of you are hanging out with us later on the audio side of things. So we appreciate everybody who is with us, however you are watching. A quick reminder that myself and Taryn Kovac make up the Mariners on Roundtable Sports team. We appreciate everybody who reads all of our content. You can find us again at marinersroundtable.com. Support us there on the written side and also here on the podcast side. We come out 3 times a week in the regular season, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And here we are continuing to be pretty consistent with our coverage in the off season. So we appreciate everybody who supports us in either venture. You will notice over my right shoulder, you will notice a QR code. That QR code, if you're watching on YouTube, takes you to marinersroundtable.com. All we ask is that you hit the join button. There is no subscription fee. We're not inundating you or bombarding you with stuff. Join our website. All we ask is that you become what we call a community member. That's a very important initiative to us at Roundtable. We want to have people on our site reading our stuff. We want to have people engaging in conversation, commenting on our articles, starting your own conversation and your own talking points. That's what our community site allows you to do. I am happy to tell you that as we launched Roundtable 3 months ago, we have at marinersroundtable.com the most community members of any baseball site. We are at 91 community members now. I would love to have that to 100 by the time we are done with this week. That would be a great accomplishment for myself and Taryn Kovac. We have a full show today. I think we'll be here 45 minutes to an hour or so. Rick Graham from Pitcher List is going to stop by. Pitcher List does a great job. If you remember, we had Nick Pollock from Pitcher List on in spring training last year, or actually in January of last year. Well, Rick Graham is going to stop by this year. He's going to talk to us more about Jose Ferrer, who the Mariners just picked up in that big trade over the weekend with the Washington Nationals. So we will have good stuff with Rick. We'll look forward to being with him, and he should be with us here towards the end of the show. But again, winter meetings, news, notes, rumors, everything is abound. So without further ado, let go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And here we go.
All right, I want to start with the Jose Ferrer move. On Saturday afternoon, the Mariners acquired hard-throwing lefty Jose Ferrer. They did that for top catching prospect Harry Ford. And let me just state it right off the top, because I got a lot of questions about this on social media, and I, of course, saw a lot of scuttle about this on social media. I like this acquisition. We'll talk about Harry Ford in a minute, but the acquisition of Jose Ferrer, I like. I know some people are down on it. I know some people are wondering if the Mariners got enough for Harry Ford. I like this acquisition for this simple reason. This team needed another lefty in their bullpen. And by the way, they needed another lefty that wasn't one of the soft tossers or clearly secondary options that they've had over the last 2 years. Do you remember the Kirby Snead era of 2024? Taylor Saucedo of 2024 and 2025? We love Sauce. Snead, I actually kind of liked. But this team needed another lefty, and that other lefty besides Gabe Speier could not be someone that threw 89 miles an hour and had to live on trying to deceive and trick the hitter. They need a power arm in that bullpen. They needed another power arm from the left side, and they accomplished both here. They needed someone in that bullpen from the left side that could get major league hitters out consistently so that Dan Wilson doesn't have to rush to the Gabe Speier button every single night. Gabe Speier threw in 76 regular season games in 2025. He threw in 7 more in the postseason. I don't know that Gabe Speier will stay healthy. Because of that, in 2026, the Mariners need Gabe Speier insurance. They need Gabe Speier protection, and they need a guy who can take some of the load off of Gabe Speier so that he doesn't have to do that again next year, and he has a better chance at staying healthy. This move having another lefty, having a power lefty, this now gives Dan Wilson options in later in games that he didn't have in 2025. For as good as the Mariners were, for as fun as the season was, Dan Wilson did not have a lot of options late. How many times did Dan Wilson have to let a starter go deeper than they should because he was trying to save Gabe Speier for later in the game? I'm sure it happened multiple times. Probably more recognizable to fans. How often did Gabe Speier have to come in the 6th or the 7th to pitch to a tough lefty and then wasn't available for that same tough lefty in the 8th or the 9th or the 10th? That happened plenty of times. Now Jose Ferrer allows you the ability and the protection for Dan Wilson to not be in that spot. If he wants to use Jose Ferrer to get out Yordan Alvarez in the 6th, he will still have Gabe Speier available for Yordan Alvarez in the 9th. If he wants to use Gabe Speier in the 7th to get out Nick Kurtz of the A's, then he will still have Jose Ferrer for if Nick Kurtz comes around again in the 9th. That is a huge difference for this team. And Dan Wilson did not have that in 2025. And if one of them gets hurt, then at least you have the other. Whereas if you only had Speier and a guy like Saucedo and Speier got hurt, you would have been absolutely screwed. So to have another lefty was imperative for this bullpen. But not only just another lefty, a power lefty and a proven lefty. I know that Ferrer's ERA was 4.5 for the Nationals in 2025. You look under the hood, the metrics are better than that. Okay, the metrics are better than that. His ERA woulda, coulda, shoulda been in the 3s. So you have a capable lefty who appeared in more than 70 games this season to go with your other lefty in Gabe Speier who appeared in more than 70 games this season. I mean, so having Jose Ferrer makes me extremely happy. We talk about the regular season impact. How about the playoffs? I remember I was there. Game 1 in Seattle, American League Division Series. Mariners lose in the 11th inning. How? Zach McKinstry, a lefty, hits a game-winning or what turns out to be a game-winning single off Carlos Vargas. Now, I asked Dan Wilson the question after the game, should they have walked McKinstry with the base open? Yeah, and maybe they should have, would have, or maybe they should have, but they didn't. But you know what else they didn't have there to go to was a lefty. If Jose Ferrer is available in the 11th inning, maybe Zach McKinstry doesn't get that hit, or A.J. Hinch is forced to do something different, and McKinstry's out of the game, and the Mariners have a chance to win that game 1. And even though they won the series, it was made more difficult by having lost game 1 and having lost game 1 at home. You look back in that American League Division Series, the talk was how Kerry Carpenter was single-handedly winning the series for the Tigers and how he was able to dictate what the Mariners did in their bullpen. I mean, A.J. Hinch put Kerry Carpenter in the leadoff spot in Game 3. Why? Because he wanted to force Gabe Speier into the game earlier to get a starter out and then have Speier not available for more tough at-bats late. He can't do that now that Jose Ferrer is here. Having Ferrer, even though, look, he played in Washington and a lot of people hadn't really followed him, myself included, right? Because it's not a name like Edwin Diaz that everyone knows, people are ready to be down on this move. Don't be. You have a guy who's 98, 99 miles an hour with a power sinker and awesome changeup. You know who that sounds like to me? Jose Alvarado. You know what Jose Alvarado was? Nasty for years. I would take that in the bullpen as Gabe Speier a compliment, Gabe Speier insurance, Gabe Speier protection, and this makes everybody in the bullpen better. Or this makes the entire pitching staff better. Dan Wilson doesn't have to force the starters beyond their limits. He can go to the bullpen earlier. He doesn't have to wear down Gabe Speier or wear down Ferrer. This is a great move. And by the way, this is a win now move. This is a team that went to Game 7 of the ALCS that's trying to re-win a division, that's trying to re-get back to the ALCS, that's trying to break the door down and get to the World Series. And I think everybody wants that. And here they are going out and making a move to get a power arm in their bullpen, which was a desperate need, and a power bullpen arm from the left side, which was a desperate need. So, and, oh, by the way, he's got 4 years left of team control. It's a win-win all around. It's good for the now. It's good for the future. Mid-20s lefty, 99 miles an hour. He struck out 71 batters in 76 innings. I know some people don't think that's a lot. It could be more, right? He could have more strikeouts. Hopefully the Mariners will, tinker with the repertoire a little bit to get the swing and miss up. But I'm very, very encouraged by this move. And I'm very, very happy by this move. So you look at the bullpen now, and I think you've got 6 spots fully accounted for. Munoz, Brash, Spire, Bizzardo, Vargas, and now Ferrer. 6 spots. 2 more to go. Reports are out that the Mariners would like 1 more bullpen arm from the outside to get to 7. And then the 8th spot comes down to your Jackson Coars of the world, your Casey Legaminas of the world, Troy Taylor, whatever happens with Emerson Hancock. Like, those are the guys battling for the 8th spot. That's a bullpen now. And that's a bullpen that you would feel pretty good about going out and trying to win the American League West, which, by the way, appears to be winnable again. As of now, the A's haven't done really anything. The Angels have done some stuff, but they're trying to pull themselves so far up from the bottom, they shouldn't be a threat. Texas is reworking things, but they don't appear to be spending big, and the Astros haven't done anything big yet either, though I think they're always a threat. But the division is winnable, and the Mariners are treating it as such. And you want them to get back to the same spot they were last year. So do I. This kind of move, I like it. I think it's a good one, and I am certainly excited about it. Buster Olney, our friend, Buster will be with us on Thursday. He put out on social media 110 plate appearances against lefties last year for Ferrer. 2 walks. This is a guy with elite control. Okay, he has elite control. They found a guy who throws strikes, who attacks his hitters, who can do it. Guys hit, I think lefties hit 175 or something like that. I'm very, very impressed with the numbers on Ferrer. I'm very, very impressed with the, the repertoire of Ferrer, with the makeup of Ferrer. So I'm pumped about this. I am absolutely pumped about this. And Rick Graham will stop by again from Pitcher List. He will be with us at about maybe about 20 minutes or so. Got a bunch of messages coming in, actually. So my guy Nick says, Brady, I like that hoodie. Actually, that's another guy. That's Shane who says, Brady, I like that hoodie. Shout out Simply Seattle. I think I bought the entire store, so this is just another Simply Seattle purchase for me. My guy Nick says, sorry I'm late, but I am here. And they say the infield defense has to improve. That I would agree with that. Okay, the infield defense, if you're looking for one negative comment on Jose Ferrer, it's that he gets a ton of ground balls, right? That's usually a good thing because ground balls are not fly balls, are not home runs. But if the ball is going to be on the ground a lot, it has to be fielded. I will trust that the Mariners will be solid defensively at first with Naylor. I like Naylor at first. I will trust that they will be solid at third defensively with probably Ben Williamson or Cole Emerson. Up the middle is the issue right now. Cole Young, not necessarily a great defender. J.P. Crawford, a regressing defender. Those guys are going to have good seasons for Ferrer to hit his full value. But I would also say this. Pitching in Seattle, easier than pitching in Washington. So you're going to get some kind of positive regression that way, and that he's pitching in a better ballpark, a better environment. A lot of people talking about Polanco, so we're going to talk about Polanco momentarily also. I do want to say 2 more things real quick on Ferrer and on pitching. I think Ferrer is going to get a big chance in the World Baseball, in spring training when everybody leaves for the World Baseball Classic. We talked about this with Buster last week. And the downside of the World Baseball Classic is guys leave and guys risk getting hurt. The upshot is that other guys get opportunities to show what they can do. And if Munoz, Brash, and Bizzardo, like I think they could, all leave for the WBC, then that puts Ferrer in a spot to do a lot of different things in spring training and to step up and maybe be a closer, be a put-out guy, come in various situations. So I think he's going to get a lot of chances. The one guy I keep forgetting about, and I want to just make sure I put it out there, the guy I keep forgetting about is Emerson Hancock, because I am very curious what the Mariners will do with him. I'm very curious what Emerson Hancock wants to do, because Emerson Hancock is up against it, I think, on both fronts right now. I just told you there's 6 bullpen spots accounted for out of 8. They want to bring in somebody else. I'll say that they will. That would be 7. So 1 bullpen spot remaining. Jackson Kowar and Legumina have some good stuff. They also are out of options. So if the Mariners want to keep them, they have to make the roster or be subjected to waivers. Troy Taylor, we saw be really good in 2024. All of those guys have better pure stuff than Emerson Hancock does. So Emerson Hancock bullpen option is a tough path if everybody is healthy. Emerson Hancock as a starter is not a starter if all 5 guys are healthy. And now because of Logan Evans' presence, he's not automatically the number 6 guy there either. So I think Emerson Hancock is in a very difficult spot overall. But he is the guy that as I write and I talk, he's the guy I haven't necessarily thought about that I should be thinking about. He has an option to be reliever number 8 or starter number 6. But he's going to have to win both of those jobs. He's going to have to beat out the likes of Kowar, Legumina, Taylor to get to reliever 8. He's going to have to beat out Logan Evans to get to starter number 6. It is no longer a guarantee for him. Text says, do we have concerns on guys wearing down playing in the World Baseball Classic? Yes. Anything you could have a concern about with the World Baseball Classic, we have. Right? My big concern would be, and I'm going to play the Buster Olney audio in a minute, but my big I just got to finagle some buttons here to pull it up. But my big concern would be as follows. If Munoz, Brash, and Bizzardo, right, all appeared in at least 65 games last year. They all pitched deep into October. Now you're going to shorten the offseason naturally. Now you're asking them to ramp up earlier in order to be ready for the WBC. And then we're asking them to play meaningful games early. And then we're asking them to hopefully play deep into October again. Wearing down, absolutely a concern. Buster Olney of ESPN was on with us Thursday, and he said relievers are actually the group he's concerned about most in the WBC.
And there are players, and I think Cal and Julio are 2 players who are not affected by this.
Nope, that's the wrong one. Hold on. This is the right one. Here's Buster talking about the relievers, talking about the World Baseball Classic and kind of how it concerns him overall.
Right. And the glass half full executives and staffers, dealing with the WBC, that's what they focus on. Okay, well, Brady Farkas, we wouldn't have looked at him otherwise, but we get to see him in a spring training game. And that's what they like. But I got to say, more than any other group, I think there's concern about the relievers going off to the WBC because they're put in high leverage situations. They've got mid-season situations, with their team, their stature is on the line. Or they're standing in the WBC is on the line, and these guys go out there, they're playing for the country, and they're trying to do things that maybe they're not quite up to yet.
So that would be worrisome. Another text says, I thought Hancock was going back to being a starter. He's going to prepare in the offseason like a starter. And then he's going to work in spring training on a starter's program. And then we're going to see where he's at come kind of midway through spring training. That's what Justin Hollander said, right? So you can't go the other way. You have to start as a starter and then pare down if you're needed in the bullpen. You cannot start in the bullpen and then ramp back up to all of a sudden being able to throw 100 pitches. So they need him to come into camp ready to start. And if somebody is hurt, like George Kirby was hurt last year in early February, then they just kind of have Hancock or Evans there ready to seamlessly take over that sixth or that number, that fifth starter spot. If we get through spring training and everyone is healthy and Hancock is not needed, well, then the decision comes down to, okay, is it better to stash him again in the minor leagues and have him as depth, or is it better to let him be a bullpen option for us at the major league level and maybe right away in that bullpen spot, number 8? Okay.
5.
Not there. Let's see. That's the one. All right. Let's move on. A lot of people, I'm going to switch up my plan a little bit since we're doing this live, kind of let you guys drive the bus a little bit. By the way, before we get to Polanco, I was totally okay with trading Harry Ford. I know a lot of people weren't, and I know a lot of people don't think Ferrer was enough. Hopefully the first 15 minutes of this show tell you that Ferrer is good and that you should be excited about it. I was totally okay trading Harry Ford. Harry Ford was not an everyday player for the Seattle Mariners. Therefore, he was not a guy that I would have been pearl clutching to hold on to. Cal Raleigh is the catcher of this team. Cal Raleigh is going to be the catcher of this team for the next several years. And even if you think that Cal Raleigh will someday not be able to catch, then there will be another Harry Ford at that time to come and take the backup catcher role or the starting catcher role so Cal can be the DH, whether you think that's in 3 years or 5 years. I don't need Harry Ford to be on the roster just waiting for the day to come when Cal can't catch. Harry Ford is a top 100 prospect. I love prospects as much or more than the next guy, but he had no path to regular playing time on this team. Therefore, they always had an opportunity to move him if there was something that was going to bring value to the major league roster. I would not have traded Harry Ford for a 17-year-old in the Dominican Winter League. I would not have traded Harry Ford for a competitive balanced draft pick. But trading Harry Ford for a useful piece of the major league roster, that to me is more than fine. We're talking about, look, Mitch Garver played in 87 games last year, barely more than half of the Mariners' schedule, barely more than half. I think Harry Ford would have played less than that this year. So we're talking about a roster spot that would play, 65 or 70 games? I don't need to hold on to that little usage when I have the opportunity to go out and get me something that brings me closer to a division title, a World Series berth. So I like Harry Ford, the limited interaction I got to have with him in 2025. I was there in Tampa when he got called up. I was there when he made his, I interviewed him in the dugout in Tampa. It was very nice, and I'm rooting for him. But the Mariners don't have a regular spot for him. So if I can turn that question mark roster spot into everything I just spent the first 15 minutes telling you about, I was totally okay with that. I was absolutely okay with it. All right. On Polanco. So the new report that just came out a little while ago comes from Ryan Divish, and Ryan Divish from the Seattle Times, that people think that Polanco will sign soon. This dovetails what ESPN wrote late last week, where they also think Polanco will sign soon. I told you last week I did not think that Polanco would sign soon, so I appear that I will be wrong on this one, and I will wear that, and that's fine. The report from Divish says not only do people think Polanco will sign soon, but his agent, who shares the same agent as Julio Rodriguez, wants a contract of at least 3 years and at least $12 million. So at minimum, they want 3 years and $36 million. That's what Polanco's camp wants at minimum. Divish's note says that his representation preferably wants 4. I don't see any way in which the Mariners give 4. Now, let's just think about this like business people. The Polanco side really wants 4. I am sure the Mariners side really wants 2, because you're guaranteeing yourself the best version of Polanco for 2 years, and you're not on the hook for more money at a time when he's more likely to break down. So Polanco's side wants 4. The Mariners side wants 2, I'm sure. Where is the happy medium here? Where is the happy medium? The happy medium is 3. The question for me is, would the Mariners give Jorge Polanco 3 years guaranteed, or do they give him 3 years with a vesting option that's kind of contingent on how healthy and how good he is? I would tend to think it is the latter. So I think here's kind of the situation at hand. After signing Josh Naylor, I think the Mariners have somewhere between kind of $16 and $25 million to spend. I think that the Mariners will probably, this is a total guess, this is not insider news, this is just me speculating on kind of how I know the market to be and how I know the Mariners to be. I would imagine that if the Mariners have 16 to 25 million to spend, I would imagine that the Mariners go to Polanco's people and say, look, we really want to give you 2 guaranteed years, but we will give you more money in those 2 years. You wanted a salary of at least 12. How about we give you 15? How about 2 for 30? And we'll give you a vesting option for year 3, where if you do X, Y, and Z, then you will get the 3rd year. That's where I think this is going to go. I think the Mariners want Polanco. I think the Mariners think they need Polanco. I think they know the money can work with Polanco, especially if they get a little bit creative. And I think that Polanco is going to come back to the Mariners. I do. I was asked earlier in the chat, what do I think will happen? I think Polanco is going to go back to the Mariners because I think the Mariners will give him the higher annual value contract. I think they have shown that they want him. They've publicly talked about it. They've put the full court press on. And I think no matter who you are, I think players like knowing they are wanted. I think players like knowing they are valued. I think players like hearing that their team appreciated them. So the Mariners have shown the requisite love required. I think the Mariners will give a higher value than Polanco's people are asking for. I think they will give him that 3rd year vesting option, which I think will be of interest to him and his group. And I think also Polanco has relationships here, and that has to matter at some point. You throw all of that together, right, into the concoction. He's played here. He likes it here. He's won here. He's succeeded here. He's comfortable here. The coaches value him. I know how much Dan Wilson values Jorge Polanco. We know how much Jerry and Justin value and like Jorge Polanco. We know that he gets along with Julio, and we know that he's friends with Arozarena, and we know that he's got this kind of core group of people that he's down with here. And if the Mariners give him the money, and if they show him the respect of giving him that 3rd year, that's relatively attainable, then I think Jorge Polanco is going to come back. And if he is willing to sign early, I feel like it would have to be for the Mariners, would it not? Because if he was going to sign late, wouldn't he wait for musical chairs between Bo Bichette and Alex Bregman and all these other guys to sign? Like, wouldn't he wait? Hey, if Bo Bichette leaves, let's say Bo Bichette signs with Toronto, and now Boston is holding the bag. Okay, maybe they would step up for Polanco then. Or if, the Blue Jays trade for Ketel Marte, and now the Diamondbacks need a second. I just feel like if Polanco was going to sign later, he'd wait for the market to fully play out. If he's going to sign early, it feels to me like it's only for the Mariners. That is totally a speculation. That is totally just my gut on things. A couple of texts say that no, thanks. I would not like that deal. Someone says 2 years, $24 million is the max I would give him. It's going to be more than that, right? If you're getting him at the $12 million that you want, it's coming with the 3rd or 4th guaranteed year. And I think if you only want to give 2 years, you're going to have to go higher money. You're going to have to go higher money. 15, 16 million, 2 years, 28, 2 years, 30, 2 years, 32. I think that's how you get out of it. You don't want to pay Polanco till he's 35 or 36. Then you get him at a higher annual value. I think the Mariners would do it. I think he would take it, but I think there's going to have to be a 3rd year vesting option in there. Tex says, do you think Polanco wants to play the field as a requirement, or is he committed to the DH role? I've thought about this, and I want to kind of back up on something that I said last week, right? I talked about Polanco last week, and I said that I was more hesitant on bringing him back. And this was only a couple days ago, right? I was more hesitant on bringing him back. And the reason why was because I didn't think the fit was as clean, right? You have Cole Young at second. You have other guys at third. We didn't think Polanco was a very good third baseman. Cal's going to need to DH more. Just didn't seem that good a fit or that clean a fit. 3 or 4 days later, I feel a little better about it. And I do think that Jerry Dipoto said something in the Ryan Divish article that stood out to me. Jerry Dipoto continued to remind us that this team does not have a backup first baseman, right? This team does not have a backup first baseman right now. I know Luke Raley can play there, but they don't really have a backup first baseman. I think Jorge Polanco can find himself defensive innings to get guys off their feet, and I think that he can DH, and I think they can kind of massage and maneuver everything. So do I think that Polanco requires to be a starting second baseman somewhere? No, I don't. Do I think he only ever wants to play DH? No, I don't. But if they can find him 110 games at DH, 30 at second, and 10 at first, and that's 150 out of 162, I think that he would be okay with that. Again, that's just a gut, but this team needs a backup first baseman. If a tough lefty's playing and they want to give Naylor the day off, Polanco can play first. Luke Raley ain't playing first in that situation. You'd rather just have Naylor stay if you're going to play left on left. But if you want to get Naylor off his feet against a lefty, then Polanco can play there. And you don't then have to go sign somebody to be a platoon guy who's never going to play because Naylor's going to play a ton of games. If Polanco's on the roster and he can just step in to play first at times, then I think that becomes more valuable than maybe I was giving it credit for last week. So I think the Mariners have the positional ability for Polanco now. I think they have the money for Polanco. I think they have the desire for Polanco. And I think that they, I think they're going to get a deal done. I do. And that doesn't necessarily excite everybody, but I think that it's something that's going to happen. I think it's something that is going to happen. All right, let's continue the second base talk here. Let's talk about Ketel Marte and Brendan Donovan. And Rick Graham's going to join us from Pitcher List here in about 8 minutes. But let's talk about Ketel Marte and Brendan Donovan. We're hearing a lot of smoke when it comes to the second base position. And I talked a lot about this last week. So if you're wondering about Cole Young and his future, I encourage you to go back to Friday's episode because I talked a lot about it there. But if we're hearing this much smoke around second base, there's got to be some fire to it. And I have kind of landed here with Cole Young. I believe the organization thinks that Cole Young is a good player. I believe the organization thinks that Cole Young can be a very good player, and I think they believe he can be a second baseman of the future. What I think is happening is that the Mariners realize that Cole Young is not that player now, and they are operating with a sense of urgency that they need a guy now. That is where I think we are at on Cole Young. I don't think that the interest in second baseman is a sign that they think Cole Young is bad or is a bust. I think it's just a sign that Cole Young is not a perfect player right now, and they need a guy who is closer to a finished product. And that is why I think they are very in on Ketel Marte and on Brendan Donovan. And I will tell you that I think those deals, Marte and Donovan, I think those deals are hard, and I am leery of them. I am not telling you not to make them. There's a difference here. I'm straddling the fence a little bit. I am not telling you not to make those deals, but I am telling you that I think deals for those players are hard. And the reason why is something I said a couple of weeks ago. I think the Mariners are in a tough position future pitching-wise. right? You see the money given to Dylan Cease. They clearly are not going to be able to keep both of George Kirby and Logan Gilbert. Heck, they might not even be able to keep one of them. We know that Luis Castillo's deal is going to end. So there's a very real chance that in the next 3 years, you're going to have to replace 3 of your 5 starters. You'd still have Brian Wu and Bryce Miller for a couple of years after that, but there's a very real chance you have to replace 3 of your 5 starters. Well, you have right now 3 guys we think of as home run replacements waiting for them when that day comes. Cade Anderson, Jurangelo Saincha, and Ryan Sloan. The reason why I am leery of these potential deals is because you will have to give up at least one of them to make either of those deals happen. And I am leery of that. Again, I'm not saying not to do it. I want the Mariners to win the division and win the World Series, and I'm in favor of win now moves. But I would certainly be hesitant, and I know it would hurt and it would make me squeamish to give up any of those 3 in a deal for these players. I know the Chaim Bloom playbook in St. Louis. I covered Chaim Bloom when I did radio in New England for every year that he was with the Red Sox. He wants young pitching, and he's not looking to contend right now, so he's not looking for Logan Evans. He's not looking for Emerson Hancock. He is looking for young pitching. He will want at least one of Anderson, Saincha, and Sloan for Brendan Donovan. And are you prepared to give up that for 2 years of Brendan Donovan? I don't know that I would have a hard time stomaching that. Ketel Marte has 5 years left of team control. I think it'd probably be an easier stomach that way. But because he has 5 years left of team control, they will want a pitcher and one of your top offensive pieces. Are you prepared to give up Ryan Sloan and Colt Emerson for Ketel Marte? Are you prepared to give up Cade Anderson and Michael Arroyo, Cade Anderson and Colt Emerson? Those are tough deals to make. Those are tough deals to make. If the Mariners could trade Saincha for Donovan, I could probably do it. If they could trade Saincha and Arroyo for Marte, I'd probably do it. But why would I do it? Because those deals don't hurt quite as much. These teams will make it hurt. These teams will make it hurt you. So I'm saying I would do it, but I'm giving you the easiest to do machinations of these deals. If you know very real that you have these pitching prospects that are going to be needed in the next few years to go and then kind of obliterate that plan, that is hard. I don't think the Mariners are saying Cole Young is not good or can't be good, but I do think they are saying that he's not the guy we need right now to chase the World Series. So I think there is real fire to these talks. I don't know that they'll get either of Donovan or Marte, but I think the talks are absolutely real. Okay? I think their talks are absolutely real. Tech says, acquiring Marte requires Cole Young to be traded. I would agree with that as long as the Diamondbacks would want Cole Young, right? Like there's a world, hypothetically, where the Diamondbacks don't want Cole Young, and the Mariners then put Cole Young in AAA and then just have him as an injury replacement or move him in another deal at the deadline for somebody else. Like that world exists. So I think we assume that if they're bringing in a second baseman, they will ship Cole Young out, but the other team has to want Cole Young. So we have to see how that happens. Tech says Brendan Donovan is what we expect Cole Young to become. I would agree with that. I think in 3 years, Brendan Donovan and Cole Young, I think Cole Young is Brendan Donovan. The problem is that Cole Young is not Brendan Donovan right now. And that's how I think the Mariners see it. It's another reason why I'm a little bit leery of trading Young for Donovan, because I do think they have a similar skill package. One guy just does it now, and one guy's going to do it in 3 years. Another text says, is it true that Marte has locker room issues? That is certainly the rumor, right? And I don't have the whole story in front of me, so I don't want to kind of speak on it too much, but Marte played in the All-Star game. Apparently part of the issue in Arizona is that he asked for kind of more days off than other guys around him would have liked, right? Your best player asking for more days off, asking for out of the lineup. The Diamondbacks were trying to make the playoffs kind of midway through the end of the year, keep their team together, not have it be sold off for parts at the deadline. And he didn't come back from the All-Star break on time and took a couple of extra days off after the All-Star break. That was an issue. He had to apologize to the team. He had to speak publicly about it. His teammates had to defend him. So there are some questions about Marte there too. And if they're justified, and if they're real, I would certainly be leery of giving up huge pieces of my future also. The other thing is, I guess I will just leave that here before we get to Rick Graham. The other thing about Marte, and I should have said this, there's also the opportunity that the Diamondbacks want major league pieces. High and Bloom, I know, does not want major league pieces right now because they're not looking to contend. The Diamondbacks might want major league pieces. They might blow past the Kate Anderson question, and they might say, you know what? No, we need Bryce Miller and Michael Arroyo, and that would be too much. So if you're only looking to get rid of prospects, I think Donovan is your guy. There's a chance that the Diamondbacks could want real major league pieces also. All right, I want to go out to the phone line now, and I want to bring on Rick Graham. Rick Graham, this is such an interesting group, okay? The group is called Pitcher List, and Nick Pollock runs it, and we had Nick on in January. He's a starting pitcher expert at Pitcher List, and they do a lot of work on the analytical side of things and also on the fantasy baseball side of things. So these guys are kind of covered from every angle. Well, Nick runs the starting pitchers. Rick Graham runs the relief pitchers. So I had to go to the experts. I gave you my 15-minute soliloquy on why I like the acquisition of Jose Ferrer. Was it justified? We'll bring on Rick Graham now. Rick, thank you for being with us here on the Refuse to Lose podcast, my friend. And how are you?
I'm doing well. Excited for the winter meetings now, kicking off. Hopefully we get some more moves, some more free agent moves. But yeah, doing well.
Overall, when you first saw the news come down on Saturday afternoon, Harry Ford, top 100 prospect for Jose Ferrer, what was your initial thought?
Well, my initial thought was that's, probably a bit high of an asking price, especially considering, you go back to last year with another deal the Nationals made with their bullpen, moving Robert Garcia to the Rangers for Nathaniel Lowe, who's, a little bit of a different circumstance than Harry Ford, right? You got Ford, who's a top prospect catcher. I know catchers are differently valued around the league. But overall, look, Ford needs to catch, and he's not going to catch in Seattle. Ferrer's a really, really good arm. Someone I was really excited for. I was hoping he would stay in Washington from a fantasy relevance standpoint, because I thought he would be an underrated closer this year. There's a lot to like about Ferrer. I think the price in Ford definitely was a little bit shocking at first, but once you look under the hood, Ferrer, there's a lot to like there.
Feels like, for me, even though he comes with 4 years of team control, it feels like a win-now move for the Mariners, team that got to Game 7 of the ALCS, that's looking to get to the World Series for the first time. Ferrer is a ready-made impact arm potentially in the bullpen. How impactful do you think he can be for Dan Wilson's group?
Yeah, I think you combine him with Gabe Spire and that those two lefties. I don't know if there's a bullpen in baseball right now that has that type of that type of dominance from the two lefties in their bullpen at the same time. So Ferrer, a little bit different than Spire. I mean, he throws harder. He throws 99, big sinker baller. I wonder, he threw his sinker about 75% of the time last year in Washington. And what I was excited for with him this year was that, there's a new pitching group there. There's a whole new coaching staff in Washington. So I was looking forward to see Ferrer throw his off-speed stuff a little bit more, maybe get more swing and miss, get some more strikeouts. But the sinker's really good. I mean, left-handed 99, gets a ton of ground balls. And then if that, change up and slider develop too, this is one of the better, think like Jose Alvarado prime type, left-handed options in your bullpen. So pairing him, Spire, and then behind Brash and Munoz as well, it's a really dominant bullpen developing in Seattle.
Mariners certainly could use it, right? Good bullpen helps the starting staff as well. Starting staff helps the bullpen. They play off of each other. Alvarado is the comp that I kept coming to in my mind. Yeah. And I know that's somewhat unfair just given how dominant he was for a while. It's high expectations, but that kind of stuff and that kind of profile is kind of what we've heard about Ferrer.
Yeah, and you're looking, I mean, especially in today's game where even Seattle's got a great rotation. Obviously, those guys can go deep into games, but still having the options where you can kind of, start in the 6th inning with the two lefties they have in Spire and Ferrer, and then Brash, Munoz. Even we saw Eduard Bizzardo take a huge leap last year in the second half in the playoffs. So just giving that type of depth, and Ferrer should have better numbers. I think those strikeout numbers are going to. That's probably the biggest concern people look at, is those low strikeout numbers. But if he changes that pitch mix, throws a little bit more of his off-speed stuff, which is pretty good. His slider's good. His changeup's really good. He starts throwing those more, he'll get more strikeouts. Those numbers will look better. His ERA is high. It's inflated, but that's a lot of bad luck into that, and that's just part of the Nationals' old pitching development. So I think this is a really good, almost like a buy low, deal here for Ferrer. If you look at the ERA and WHIP from last year.
I don't know as much about the ballpark factors in Washington, but we know that Seattle is a advantageous place to pitch. How much alone does that on the surface help a guy like Ferrer?
Yeah, it's definitely a boost. And not only that, you think about the defense too. And in Washington, he had, CJ Abrams was not a great shortstop behind him. That whole infield defense was one of the worst in Washington. So now you get a big upgrade with Crawford behind him. That whole infield defense should be better in Seattle. So if for a guy who's getting 62% ground balls, that should be a huge, boost, having that Seattle defense behind him. And yeah, the ballpark is also a little bit of a boost as well. So I would expect, a big jump in his, numbers this year, Jose Ferrer.
He's really, really good against lefties. Buster Olney of ESPN put the numbers out. He had 2 walks, I think, at 110 plate appearances against lefties. So he certainly throws strikes and suppresses free passes. That's good. Throws hard. The numbers against lefties are pretty devastating. Do you see him as a guy who can pitch to both sides, or is he a guy that Spire they think can pitch to both sides, and they used him a lot against righties also? Do you think Ferrer profiles as a left-on-left guy mostly, or will he grow into being able to do everything also?
I feel like Spire is more of the left-on-left guy. I think Ferrer, because Ferrer's changeup should be his second best offering.
Yeah, true.
So that his sinker changeup profile should do well against righties. Again, he only threw the changeup, I think, 22% of the time last year. I feel like that could probably, especially if he's seeing more righties, that should go up a little bit. But yeah, I think that sinker foundation Ferrer has should give him a chance to have some good success against both lefties and righties.
Mariners figure, in my mind, I would say at this point, to have 6 bullpen arms accounted for. 6 of the 8, right? Munoz, Brash, Spire, Ferrer, Bizzardo, and Carlos Vargas. Those 6 are, I would say, are in. Mariners reportedly want one other bullpen arm out of this offseason. Is there anybody out there that you find appealing that's not in the very high price category where we know the Mariners aren't going to be living? They're not going to be shopping in the Edwin Diaz marketplace, I don't think.
I think, I was surprised when the Braves didn't pick up Tyler Kinley's option. And I know he doesn't have the best numbers, but that's a guy who came from Colorado for the last couple years. When he did go to Atlanta after the deadline, he pitched really well there. His strikeout numbers, his strikeout walk numbers, his peripherals all look pretty good on the outside. So I feel like, I don't expect the Mariners to make a big splash again in the free agent reliever market, but someone like Tyler Kinley, or even like a Pierce Johnson there, just to kind of shore up things, especially on the right side. I think with Ferrer and Spire, they're pretty good on the left side, so probably get one more righty in there. I would look at one of those guys the Braves had given up on this year.
It's interesting. 2 years ago, the Mariners acquired Gregory Santos from the White Sox, and there was a lot of optimism around what he had done in 2023 with Chicago. A lot of optimism that they could have kind of this great back-end trio with Munoz, Brash, and Santos, and it just didn't work out, right? The injuries got to Santos in a big way over the last 2 years. Why is Ferrer not going to be Santos 2.0? Because that's the thing that fans are nervous about. We've seen this movie before, and it didn't end well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's similar, profiles, big fastballs, big ground ball stuff. I think Ferrer at least has a little bit more of a track record now. He's got like a year and a half on him, and he's been able to stay healthy, and that's obviously going to be a key with any of these guys. But yeah, I feel like Ferrer is coming into a better situation from a worse situation, which Santos was as well. But as long as Ferrer's healthy, man, I feel like you guys are gonna love him there. It's really good stuff from the left side that you just don't see often.
It's interesting too. I think that, and I'll leave you with, I don't know if this is more of an anecdote. I don't even know if it's a question, but I think Ferrer is going to get a lot of chances in spring training to show what he can do and work in different situations, because we've talked a lot about this already here. I think the Mariners are going to have one of the most impacted rosters of anybody by the WBC. And I think that as long as everybody's healthy, I think Munoz for Mexico, Brash for Canada, and Bizardo for Venezuela are all going to be gone. And there's a chance that Spire could pitch for Team USA also, although we haven't heard any connection, but he certainly makes sense as a possibility. Ferrer could end up with significant spring opportunities to work in a lot of different ways to kind of tinker and try some of these things you're talking about.
Yeah, and that's a good point with especially being on a new team, new situation. You want him to be there in spring training. So hopefully, yeah, I don't think he is lined up to be in the WBC. But yeah, Ferrer should get a lot of opportunity, especially, he won't be, pitching to Cal Raleigh in the spring, but he'll have a chance to work with that pitching staff and the pitching development guys there. And hopefully, they should have some things to tinker with him. Because the stuff's there. There's a really good foundation, but there's definitely more upside there that we haven't seen from Ferrer yet.
Well, we'll look forward to finding out. I am okay with giving up Harry Ford. I'm excited about the move, and we will see if it pays dividends in 2026, because the Mariners are in win now mode. Rick Graham over at Pitcher List. We love those guys. Again, if you're interested in fantasy, if you're interested in just pitching analysis, they've got you covered there. Nick Pollock on the starter side, Rick Graham on the bullpen side. Rick, much appreciated, and I'm sure we'll do it again here the next several months. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Brady.
Absolutely. There he goes. That's Rick Graham over at Pitcher List. I enjoyed talking with him. The thing I took away, I think we talked for 10 minutes or so. The thing I took away most, he says, I don't know if there's another bullpen in baseball that has two lefties with the kind of stuff that Gabe Spire and Jose Ferrer have. Like that there to me, like that's the money line. 10-minute interview, that's the money line. I don't know if there's another bullpen in baseball that has two lefties that are bringing the stuff that the Mariners are with Spire and Ferrer. I know some people are worried about him being Gregory Santos 2.0. Look, the bullpen is the most volatile thing in baseball. 1 year, guys got an ERA of 5. Next year's got an ERA of 2. 1 year, guys got an ERA of 2. Next year, guys got an ERA of 5. Bullpen volatility hits everybody. There's no guarantee that anybody in the bullpen is good from 1 year to the other. Even Edwin Diaz, who everybody agrees is the best reliever available this year, had a not very good 2024. So yes, anything can happen when it comes to Ferrer. I believe in the talent. I believe in the stuff. I believe in the repertoire. Rick Graham does too. And again, remember, Harry Ford, he was blocked here. He was blocked here. As much as you may like him or like top 100 prospects, and I do, he had no real future here. He had no real future here. All right, let's leave it for the day with this. The Harry Ford trade, it leaves the Mariners a catcher short. Adam Jude, Seattle Times, reporting the Mariners are open to a reunion with Mitch Garver, but nothing is imminent. I will tell you right now, I am okay bringing Mitch Garver back as well. Now, some people are not okay with the idea of just running it back with Garver, running it back with Polanco, running it back in general. I am okay with bringing back Mitch Garver, and here is why. I understand that Mitch Garver did not have a very good 2 years in Seattle. He hit 187 in total. He had 24 home runs, I believe, in those 2 years. Mitch Garver was brought here to be an anchor of a lineup. Mitch Garver was brought here to be a cleanup hitter. He was brought here to be a designated hitter. And by midway through year one, he was none of those things. So that is frustrating. That is disappointing. I understand why people would not want Mitch Garver back, because watching Mitch Garver was frustrating for the better part of 2 seasons. Part of the reason why you are frustrated with Mitch Garver is that you had the expectations that the Mariners did of Mitch Garver, that he was going to be an anchor of the lineup. You know the Mariners don't spend a lot of money. So the fact that they gave Mitch Garver $12 million a year, you expected him to justify that. You expected him to earn it. If Mitch Garver comes back this time around, it will be on a 3-year or a $3 million deal or a $4 million deal. It will be something that his productivity more equally relates to, more equally equates to. Okay. Mitch Garver, as on a $3 million deal, is more serviceable than Mitch Garver on a $12 million deal. Mitch Garver hitting 210 with 9 home runs on a $3 million deal makes him a valuable backup catcher. Mitch Garver hitting 180 with 9 home runs on a $12 million deal makes him a frustration point. He is a veteran. He's a professional. He's a guy who's respected in the clubhouse. He knows the pitching staff. That matters. The other backup catcher options are not that intriguing. Do you remember when the Mariners had Sebi Zavala as their backup? Like, there's not a whole lot of guys out there. Jonah Heim is going to get a starting job somewhere. Christian Vasquez, okay, maybe. But he doesn't have the power that Garver has. Garver had a 718 OPS against lefties. And he knows the starters. And he knows the bullpen. And he knows the coaching staff. And he's close, and he knows what Dan Wilson expects out of the catcher position. There are slim pickings on the backup catcher market. Garver coming back on a 3 or 4 year deal where the pressure is removed from him to be the guy, that is something that I could handle and I could stomach. And if it comes to it, I think you should as well. Final text says, I am not okay with Garver. He never changed his approach at the plate. He looked lost. It was a wasted spot in the order. Look, I'm going to pull up some stuff here on my screen. So pardon me for a second while I look up what exactly I am trying to get to. Here are the catchers that you're frustrated and tired of Mitch Garver. Fine. But here are the catchers who are available. JT Realmuto. They're not signing him. We know that. Christian Vasquez, who is older than Mitch Garver, who has seen his offense crater since 2021. Danny Jansen of the Brewers. I kind of like Danny Jansen. He's 31 years old. He played on an $8.5 million deal last year. I don't know that he is going to. Yeah, okay. Jonah Heim is going to be a starter somewhere. Jonah Heim is not going to be a backup to Cal Raleigh. Victor Caratini. I like Victor Caratini. I could go with that. But if he played on a $10 million deal last year for the Astros. Let's say he needs $7 this year. Are you going to dedicate $7 million to your backup catcher? I don't think so. Luis Torrens. Do you remember what Luis Torrens' career has looked like? Luis Torrens, there's a reason why he got brought back and forth for the Mariners like 3 or 4 times. Luis Torrens hit 226 this year for the New York Mets with 5 home runs. You know who had more home runs than Luis Torrens did? Mitch Garver. You know who had more RBIs than Luis Torrens did? Mitch Garver. So if you're going to tell me that Luis Torrens is the answer, then you might as well just bring back Mitch Garver. Luis Torrens had an OPS plus of 78 this year. Mitch Garver's OPS was 86. Mitch Garver hit 209 with 9 home runs and 30 RBIs, in less games played. He had more homers and more RBIs and less games played than Luis Torrens did. At that point, you're just saying you don't want Mitch Garver back just because you don't like Mitch Garver. And I can understand that, but the backup catcher market is such that Mitch Garver probably is the best realistic option out there. And he knows the pitching staff, and he had a 718 OPS plus against lefties. So if you're talking about a roster spot that won't play as much. Now, I don't think that Mitch Garver has to be the, everyday catcher against a lefty, but if he's going to play 60 to 75 games for $2 to $4 million, you can do a whole lot worse. Again, remember the Sebi Zavala era. That's what some of the alternatives are. All right, I want to thank Rick Graham. I want to thank all of you for listening. A reminder, over my right shoulder is a QR code. That QR code takes you to marinersroundtable.com. Myself and Taryn Kovac, man, this is how we make our living, okay? doing this podcast and writing a whole lot of content for MarinersRoundtable.com. The way you can support us is by joining at that QR code, joining our community. It is free, engaging on our posts, looking at our stuff, reading our stuff, giving feedback on our stuff. There's no subscription fee here. We're not asking for donations. We're not asking for membership fees. It's all free. We just ask that you join the site and tell your friends that it exists. And we ask that you keep listening to this podcast. We will be back at it again later this week. It will be kind of winter meetings dependent. Definitely Buster on Thursday, but I think either Tuesday or Wednesday, we will come back with another episode, kind of depending on the next round of Mariners news. So continue to follow me on social media. You can see it in the corner here at Refuse to Lose Pod on social media. I am much more active on X than anything else, but I'm also on Instagram there. So do go and find us, follow me, and keep up with all of our content. I want to thank all the commenters who are on YouTube today. The podcast also coming out immediately on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. I'll see you again either tomorrow or Wednesday here on the Refuse to Lose podcast. Again, brought to you by Roundtable Sports. And as always, go M's.